Hello, hello, hello. Well, the title I've used for this one is Are There Really Five Dimensions of Training? And this is something that God showed me ages ago that I think it's time I shared with you. Now, you've probably heard of the idea of three dimensions, something that's high and wide and long, but then some people call time the fourth dimension. But what if there were actually five? What if God had planned five dimensions of training? Yeah, instead of sort of height, width, breadth, length, time. But what if that you did split training into five different dimensions? See, training is not just about learning new skills; it's about transformation, and that's one of the things that he's been showing me just lately. And how important it is for us to change. See, first we change on the inside and we heal and we get restored and we get delivered and we can actually see things. And then once we're able to see things, we can see things God's way because of all these bumps and bangs and hurts sort of lead us astray on there. I mean, I remember seeing a picture, people sort of saying, well, yeah, well, you're walking along this way and the bumps and the bangs, well, they take you along that way. And when you're healed, you come back on it. When you're not healed, well, it's not so easy to get back on the track. You sort of do things slightly differently. And once you've healed, once you've dealt with the things that have gone wrong, yeah, you can get back on track and life becomes so much easier. At least that's my experience. And would be good to know if that's yours as well. But let's you think about it this way: is you see, a long time ago, I asked God what He wanted me to cover in some training courses. You see, I had this idea that I would be helping people get some businesses off the ground and get some practical things going. And he was showing me, there, but I said, what do you want me to teach? And he said, and then he sort of gave me this idea of the five dimensions. And what I'm going to explain here is not quite exactly what he said. This is the ChatGPT version of it, which I'm trying to see if how that comes across. Now, the first dimension is the initiation training. This is the starting point. It's about knowing you're accepted and loved by God. And before we step into our calling, we also need to master one essential skill, and that's recognizing the voice of God. Because how can you follow somebody if you don't recognize their leading? And yeah, it's a really basic skill. And the other thing is with the initiation, it's just sort of that it's just your start of your it's the start of your healing there. It's the start of your restoration. It's the start of becoming who God intended you to be. And so you get to know him and there, because I have found that the easiest way of doing of getting ourselves restored or being restored on there is literally just sitting and spending time with God. Well, if you can't hear his voice and you're there and you're struggling to get into, to be confident that you're actually in his presence, well, you're going to struggle to get past that step. So that's your first step of sort of being able to hear God and get into his presence and really start getting to know him and like being introduced, a bit like bit like going to college and finding your way actually into the college, and there instead of getting lost, because there you find your way in. The next step is the recognition training. This is where we discover who we are and what we carry. This is where we uncover the gifts, talents, and strengths that God has put in us. And it's about recognizing our identity and our potential so that we can fully step into our calling. God has made every single one of us unique. We're all individuals. He's made us all there. He's actually made us so that, he's made us to suit the tasks that he's got in mind. He's got this master, this, it's like playing 27 layer chess with God, because he moves things into position so many ways. He designs us to do specific tasks, and the specific tasks are sort of like fit in with us, and he's constantly working in so many different ways and so many different layers that it's beyond our ability. In fact, all we really need to do is get to know him there and get to know him and let him guide us. And the strange thing is, you don't always recognize the gifts, talents, and strengths that you have. Yeah, you've got there. And I mean, you might not realize that there are times when he has given you a special ability that he's organized an experience for you, so that experience strengthens you or prepares you or makes it easier to do the next task he's given you to do. Yeah, is always good at organizing people when we let him. That's the key. We don't, I tell you what, sometimes, yeah, we have to let him show us on there. But the third level is impartation. And this is where we learn to use the things that God has given us. It might be, I mean, one of the things that that happens is that we need to learn how to go to God and get his strategies and get his wisdom and learn his ways of doing things. Oh, and we also need to learn how to deal with those who are going against us, that who are not on God's side, and we need to be able to learn to fight back. And there's a whole sense of what some people would call spiritual warfare, and other people would call specific prayer, and it's all comes round into learning how to do things on there. So first of all we get to know God and be able to get in his presence, then we recognize who we are, then we learn how to do the stuff basically. And only when we've got to that stage can we go on to the next bit, which is the embarkation. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, there's no way I could have come up with 5 things that all end up with shun like that. We've got limitation, recognition, impartation, embarkation, perspiration. There's no way I could have actually come up with those. I mean, I literally got those and I wrote it down. And I wrote it down within 5 minutes. It's probably taken me longer to explain them to you than it did to write it all down. It was quite a surprising experience, to be honest. But your embarkation there, that's when you step out and build things. Now, that could be a ministry, it could be a business, it could be a non-profit, it could be all sorts of things. And it's the things that God has told you to build. He actually by this stage, you've learned how to you've know who you are, and you've learned how to get the instructions, and this is where you start putting those instructions into action. And as you put those instructions into action, you can move from having a vision to a reality. And so the embarkation training covers all sorts of practical things, which including the legal structures and strategic planning. And so you can actually do things. It's a sort of the practical, it's getting hold of the strategies and being able to put the strategies in there. And it's some of it is sort of making sure that you stay legal within the government side of things and get that done right. The final stage is the perspiration training. This is where you're actually doing the work and you go there, and it's it's the perspiration, it's doing the work, it's doing the thing, and it's takes time. It's where the effort, and it's you take all the things that God's given you, the abilities, the skills, the ability to get strategies from him, and you actually then step out and do the stuff. You do the marketing and the operations and the day-to-day management, and it's about persevering and learning how to build something that lasts while still staying faithful to God. So you're doing there, so you're actually building in the way God wants you to build on there, and you're building it his way. But could say it's perspiration training, the things that help you do the stuff. I mean, there's no point in setting up a business if nobody knows that it's there. And how do you tell people it's there? Well, that's what marketing's all about. And there's no point in running something and not having and for it being sort of make it so that it's so complex you can't do it properly. Well, yeah, you need a bit of guidance, such as putting things right and doing things God's way and getting it stopped. And he has this habit of leading you on to where the best training to find the best training. There's more than once, and I've said, yes, would you show me how to do this and there and that's how it's worked. So you learn to hear God, and you say, oh yes, and get to know him, and you recognize who you are. So yeah, I'm capable of doing this, and you learn the skills of putting things into action and impartation there, and you get things off the ground with your embarkation, and you keep on going and going and going and going with the perspiration. It's surprising how that works. And I'll tell you something funny about that. God had shown me that ages and ages ago. And I then put it to one side. And then when it started getting me to look about what's to be done with Everyone Can Craft, he took me on a slightly different journey, like I explained in another video, where he taught me the idea that if we do things wrong and get out of his way, it's like having blinders on our eyes, or it's like getting off the path and we don't know quite where we're going, and we can get wandered off on there. And then I've come back to this, and I said, hang on, what have you been saying? You've been telling me that I need to deal with deal with the hurts and the pains and make that so I can see your way better, to do things your way better, develop the mind of Christ there. And I'm thinking, oh, this sounds extreme. This sounds extremely similar. But I think you might know what you're doing, because you told me to do the same thing in two slightly different ways. Yeah. Oh, well, I'm there. like I say, this is sort of like training for, it's like training for a purpose. It's a sort of not necessarily just putting building a business on there. This is actually, and very often it's building your vision. It's sort of like so it's really a framework for playing your part in building the kingdom of God. And yeah, we're not all the same, and this sort of training recognizes that we're not all the same. And yes, we can get good ideas off each other on there, but the best way of doing things is not to do things your own way, and not necessarily to copy somebody else. You actually do it God's way, and let him teach you and let him show you how to do things, because he's a most brilliant teacher that I've ever known. And the number of times that I've said, well, would you show me how to do this? Would you show me what this involves? And a little while later, oh, that's how you do it. Oh, that speaker's saying this. Oh, and that video that just popped up on my YouTube feed. Yeah. Yeah, and that book that I just spotted, or somebody recommended, or that I found by accident in the secondhand shelves, in the secondhand bookshop. Oh, that's the answers. That's where you've hidden the answers. And a lot of this is about asking God for asking the right questions to God, and then which then makes it so much easier for him to give you the right answers. Because I'm not quite sure where it is in Proverbs, but there's somewhere in Proverbs where it says that he actually hides things for us so that we get well, I suppose the joy, the pleasure, I don't know. It sort of like builds us up by actually finding the answers to the questions. It's not just that we're spoon fed. The fact that we have to do a bit of work discovering things. Actually, I find that doing the work discovering it actually builds it sort of hard bakes ideas into me. It makes it harder for me to forget, because I've had and follow this and follow that and follow that. Oh, that's how it's done. Brilliant. And because I've got that sort of what you might call eureka moment, it sticks that much easier. It sticks so much better in me. But it works because God sees that we're individuals, and he makes an individual plan for us. Yeah, people can guide us in there, but overall, he is the most brilliant trainer and teacher imaginable. It sort of makes my life easier on there, because all I need to do to help you is say, yes, well, you need to lean on God in that way at this time, and you need to get his help to do this at that time. And oh yeah, in this stage you start with his help with doing this, hearing his voice, and this stage you need to get his help to help you understand who you are, that you're a child of God, and that he loves you, and that he provides for you, and he'll do all sorts for you because he's a good dad. And you recognize who you are, and you get the strength to get up and do things. And to be honest, once you sort of really realize who you are and what you're capable of doing, it's, oh, let's go for it, because I wanted to, you've done so much for me. I want to serve you. Now, like, come on, let's get up and go and run together in this, and work together as a partnership and do it together. That's a brilliance of it. At least that's my experience of this so far. And we really are God's handiwork, and we were created in Excuse me, I have no idea where all those sneezes came from. You know, because we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do. That is what Paul tells us, and he just told his Ephesians, you know, chapter 2, verse 10. And yeah, he's got his ways of preparing us and helping us and leading us out of the muck and mire, helping us to stand on the rock. And then once we're standing on the rock, it's, oh, you can do this for me now. Oh, there. And our God is so amazing and so willing to help us. The fact that we hold back or we ignore his advice or put off his advice, as I have done more than once, and literally it's the biggest thing is going on and following me, yeah, and just walking with him in partnership and doing things together on there, yeah. So that's a slightly different perspective of what I was looking at before within there, but as I've mentioned in other videos about doing the stuff. But hey, we talk about the polyvariegated wisdom of God, and it's definitely yeah, it's definitely multifaceted, but it all works together. And there's was it the Romans out? Everything works together for those who love God. I think that's how it goes. Romans 8:28 or there. And it's more or less it, isn't it? Everything works together for those who love God and are willing to do things his way. And he'll sort it all out. And our job is just to trust him and work with him as his partners. Ooh, that's fun. It's a bit scary at times, but it's definitely fun because if he's in charge and you're working together, how do you fail? You fail if you don't quite follow his plan, and you fail sometimes if somebody puts a spanner in the works, but hey ho, you've got the best God and he'll sort it all out in the end. Anyway, I'll keep on going rambling like this if I don't sort of stop and land the plane, I'll just keep on rambling on. And I'm not going to subject you to that. So why don't you have a look at everyonecancraft.club and see what there is on there. There's a few different things in terms of there, because the idea of Everyone Can Craft is that we build a community together. The idea is that we build together, you sort of use crafts to build up people in spiritually, and then you build there and you do outreach do mission outreach into the community using craft groups, and that's a whole there, but that's another video on there. But have a look at Everyone Can Craft, see what you think of what's on there so far, and come back to see the next video. Bye for now. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe as well. That's a really good idea. Really good idea, because if you subscribe, not only does it tell YouTube that you've actually found it interesting, it also makes it easier for you to find me again. So bye for now.